Hello, and welcome to Learn in Public with Doug and Erik. I'm Erik,
And I'm Doug.
and this is the show where we talk about our solo creator businesses. And it's a time during the week where we're not solo. We have each other to bounce ideas off of, and we're doing that in public so that if you're a solo creator, or maybe you'd like to be a solo creator and you can benefit from this, then awesome. And this is episode number 10.
Woo! Made
Woohoo!
it to double digits.
We did.
I
That's
love how
pretty
you
awesome.
you your play on solopreneur and having a place to not be solo as a solopreneur. I feel like
Yeah.
that's probably one of the best taglines or intros to the show that I think we've done so far. I like it.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Awesome. Just winging it. So let's see. I'm in the hot seat this week, which means that I'm going to talk about some stuff that's going on for me. And so we'll get an update from Doug.
Yeah, good to be here with you again, Erik.
Same.
My update this week is follow up on what we talked about last week. Where I kind of proposed this new project of writing essays,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that I've done a little bit in the past, and at times I've really wanted to kind of lean into the writing side of my work, which is very visual focused, being about sketchnoting. But I've really
Sure.
enjoyed, in some ways, I enjoy writing more than sketchnoting or as much as sketchnoting. So had some great suggestions from you, Erik, last time about where that might live, how to kind of approach that writing and do it in a way that um, integrates well with what I'm already doing and also kind of provides the potential for some financial support. You brought up Substack, which I had been exploring over the past week, and I like it. I like it a lot.
Good.
I like Substack. I've been writing every day, and I'm liking
Wow.
that cadence.
Congratulations.
So I'm getting basically really excited to probably I'll wait until the new year, but to start what I'm kind of thinking of as a Substack publication. Um, I like that phrasing of it, even though Substack is a newsletter um, service in a lot of ways. But thinking about it as a publication, since what I want to create are these illustrated essays that I put a decent amount of time and effort into. I kind of like the framing of publication.
Sure.
Um,
It's sort of like blog meets newsletter, isn't it, really? I mean,
yeah.
when you get right down to it, because like if I go to your Substack, I can
Mhm.
see all the things you've written.
Yeah.
It's not just that.
Yeah.
So
Um,
I love publication. I think it's cool.
and in getting it ready and kind of seeing how the Substack kind of platform works. My profile, is my name, Doug Neill, and I can have a little like bio of a few sentences or whatever. But then, kind of the publication or the newsletter that I'm creating can have its own name that's
Hmm.
unique. Some people do, like we talked about Austin Kleon last time. His newsletter is just his name, so it's Austin Kleon by Austin Kleon. But I think most people
Okay.
name their newsletter, give it a name.
Right.
And I've been brainstorming some. The one I like so far, it's kind of tentative title, is Drawn Inspiration.
Drawn inspiration. Okay, I like that.
Um, which has a little bit of a double meaning. Because the main thing I'm sharing is inspiration that I've drawn from the books I've read. So like
Hmm.
that meaning of drawing inspiration, right? You draw inspiration from others, you draw inspiration from your life experiences. But then,
Yep.
of course, I'm drawing in these illustrated essays. So
Hmm.
the little tagline would be illustrated essays on life and books. Like, because I do want to have like an emphasis there that I mean, that's really it's what it's a combination of, like things going on in my
Hmm.
life, things I'm reading in books. So that's how I'm kind of thinking about it and framing it so far. We'll see if other ideas for, especially the hardest one is the title, like coming up with the name of a thing and then, kind of committing to it. So that's probably
Can
where I
I
feel the
ask
most.
one question?
Yeah.
Why drawn past tense?
Yeah. I do also like drawing inspiration.
Me too.
So that could be an alternative one. The reason I didn't, and this is maybe a stupid and maybe a bad reason, I shouldn't say stupid reason.
Good. Yeah, not stupid.
The URL drawoninspiration.com is available. And if someone searches drawing inspiration, what comes up are have to do with like how to find inspiration for your drawings. It's like
Right.
real life
Right.
examples.
I get that. That
That
makes
may
sense.
or not.
That's not stupid. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that may not be a good enough reason to not go with drawing inspiration.
No,
Because I like.
I actually don't think it is. I think so. You could get the URL drawn. Have you already got it?
I went ahead and picked it up because
Okay, I was going to say
that's what you do,
get it
right?
before this publishes.
or one of our 30 subscribers might go beat me to
I know.
it.
Yeah, I go jump, and get on it. Yeah, no, I think that's a great reason. Yeah, no, I and just hearing that totally makes sense. Drawing inspiration is much more generic. Drawn inspiration is it's just a little different, and just sitting with it this long makes me like it better.
Yeah. Okay.
So
That's good.
I think that's good. Yeah,
And I think like with naming something, like I guess I'm stating this for reminding myself of this, as hard as it is to remember. Like it doesn't matter that much. Like once it gets going, it will kind of like develop its own identity through your work. So trying not to put too much pressure around the name of a thing
totally,
is what I tell myself about it. But
totally.
But yeah.
It's important-ish.
Important-ish.
And
yeah.
you've got a great option going there.
Yeah.
I think drawn inspiration's beautiful, actually.
Yeah.
I'm a fan now, and I
you.
like it better than drawing. So.
Okay, glad to hear it. Yeah, that's it. I'm gonna keep plugging away, and hopefully in probably sometime in the new year. I think I want to have 3 essays up by the time I kind of like announce it, and I think there's one essay that's kind of just describing the origins of this project. That'll be the one like on the homepage that will be publicly available. But then I think everyone after that will be kind of behind the paywall of the $5 per month or $50 per year subscription to this publication. So that's the plan.
I think that's great.
Yeah. Thanks for the inspiration last week. Like that Substack was like a huge opener for me. And just seeing like the writing community that's there on Substack, I think will be a good
pretty
motivator.
cool, huh?
So
that's pretty cool.
But that's it for me. I'll throw it to you, Erik.
Okay. Well, geez Louise. Like I was telling you before we hopped on, I've been kind of dealing with the 10 and 12-year-old me, and how those 2 times in my life where I one has to deal with my first introduction to work at 10 years old. I don't have I told this story already about the newspaper route I did for my friend.
I think you maybe made a brief reference to it.
Yeah. Anyway, it freaked me out. For a week I was going to cover a newspaper route for the neighbor kid, and the night before I couldn't sleep. I was crying. I was like, I can't do this. I just had like total anxiety about it. Poor little 10-year-old me. And my mom was just bless her heart. I mean, she was trying to help, but she's like, it's going to be fine. Don't worry. But what I I realize now is what I really needed was somebody to go, I'll help you. And so this has been my challenge in being a solopreneur, is coming up against this 10-year-old who really wants someone to say, I'll help you. But I'm doing it on my own. And I see that that's kind of perfect. It's the way of working through this. It's why that probably happened in the first place. It's why it still comes up. It's like, it's just my path. It's what the universe is laying out before me. So two things. I am realizing that, yes, I am getting help in places like this and with all the other support I have. So I remind myself that, I'm not doing this on my own. That helps the 10-year-old calm down. Then the 12-year-old chimes in. And that was when I first started dealing with issues of identity. When I first realized I'm not okay the way I am because people make fun of me and they want to hurt me if I just do what I think is natural. This was the first time I ever kind of got, teased for being gay, or not being like all the other kids. And I didn't even know I was gay at the time, like I didn't know what gay was at 12. It was the 70s, for crying out loud. And so that was when I started to kind of hide and create a shell around myself and try to figure out, how do I present a personality that will be accepted and successful and loved in the real world.
Yeah.
And then it took another 10 years to dismantle all that and finally come out of the closet. But that identity was a real, it was again, kind of like a real blessing in a lot of ways, because I very consciously was like, I need to be someone else. And it wasn't like I was just sort of falling into it. I was like, I need to do this now. Like, I need to change. And so I kind of look at my life now the same way. I'm like, okay, what is identity? Where does it factor into things like my business, my social media presence, my podcast? What are all these things, and how do I bring my most authentic self to them? Because that is a value of mine now, is being my most authentic self. And then this week, seeing everything with Chat GPT and what a watershed moment this is for humanity, really. I heard
Tell me about that. I don't know what that
Chat
is.
GPT is that new AI that everybody's talking about.
Oh.
Where they got 1 million people to sign up in 6 days, had to shut it down. This thing can do anything. It's spooky smart. And I heard one person talk about it as being kind of like Hiroshima. It's that big of a thing that we have crossed the threshold now.
Now, is that the one I've seen? I've seen two
That's
different.
Not the one making the pictures.
Yeah, I've seen the one that makes the pictures, and I've seen one that auto writes.
It's the
essays.
auto writes.
It's the auto writing one. Okay.
It auto writes essays. It auto writes code. It auto writes programs. It won't be long before it's writing entire books. And
illustrating them.
And illustrating
I'm out of a job.
Absolutely.
Just kidding.
Well, but here's the thing: is yes, there are going to be a generation of kids. Your kids are going to grow up in this world. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking about it on my walk this morning. It's like the last time I went to a cobbler was in the 90s. And I know I could probably still find a cobbler if I needed one, but do they even make shoes that last long enough to go to a cobbler anymore?
Right.
So there are things that just go away. But what will this AI make go away?
Yeah.
Will it make the idea of actually writing go away? And then will it make the idea of thinking go away? Will it make the idea of friendship, companionship go away? Because you can have an AI that is a perfect companion. Never an awkward moment, only good times. It basically promises the end of suffering through convenience, which is like addiction.
In the best case scenario, too. Like, which who knows how long it would take to even get to that point. Yeah. But it's bringing up those questions for sure.
It's like it's almost, it's like opium, really. It's just a huge unknown, right? Mm-hmm. Again, it comes back to real people authentically interacting as humans. And I want to bring everything I do back to that.
Yeah.
I am not going to be writing bedtime stories from the AI. I am not going to be doing that in my work and in my life. I'm not totally against AI for things like, for example, Spotify. I think it's the best use of AI that's ever come around. Spotify recommends some awesome music and makes some great playlists. I'm not totally against it, but I think that it can get to a very disturbing place really fast.
Yeah.
So I want to bring this authenticity front and center in everything I do. This is a very long way around to this segue of I'm about to go on my first vacation in 4 years. And I'm also at an inflection point with my businesses where I'm going to be launching this new thing next year, Awaken Your Myth. And I really am committed to growing Listen to Sleep to make it more of a better business, to make it kind of be what I always hoped it would be, which is my full-time job. So that means Listen to Sleep basically needs to double from what it is now. I got all my Spotify Wrapped numbers this year, and it's in the top 1% of podcasts. It's, it's over 250,000 downloads a month. You'd think that would be enough for the podcast to cover my, to be a full-time living for me with sponsors and supporters who get the premium podcast. But it's right at about half.
Gotcha.
It kind of needs to, if it doubled, we'd be right there. So I'm going to be gone for the last 2 weeks of the year from working, and I'm just going to take that time off because I need it. I need to clear my head, step away from the regular routine of creating 3 episodes a week and everything else I do. And I was just today writing the introduction that's going to, because I'm creating all those episodes over the next week to, so I'm like working hard every day right now to take this time off. I'm going to have a generic opener for 2 weeks worth of episodes, which will be about 6 episodes. And at first I thought I'll just, say, hey, I'm on vacation. Thanks. But I thought, no, I'm going to share what's really going on for me, which is that I could use my listeners' help in making this happen. So basically I kind of told a little story about, thank you so much. It's amazing that the podcast is now, has listeners in 117 countries. It's in the top 1% of podcasts worldwide, but it still hasn't gotten to the point that I've been trying to get to for the last 3.5 years. So what I'd really love is if you could help me get there. And the way we can do that is if each of you just shared this with a couple of your friends, send them a link to the website, they can get what you get for free, and it will make the podcast big enough where I can reach my goal. And if you'd like, it would be super helpful if you want to support the podcast. And I have a new premium. I'm going to revamp the premiums episodes in the new year. It's going to make them even better, more valuable. If you sign up now, you'll get something extra. And that felt really good to just kind of like, just authentically say, look, I don't love doing this, but here's where I'm at, and I'm just going to level with you. And I honestly don't know if it's the right way to do it, or if I should just do, something more marketing, like, should I keep my mouth shut and just try to get on more podcasts and get listeners that way? But then I thought, you know what? No, I'm gonna authentically tell these people who, like the podcast, that if they just shared it, it would really help me. It's going to help the people they share it with.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cost anybody anything.
No.
So.
And you know what it reminds me of is like the way you were describing the story you're going to tell, and kind of a bit of a pitch to your current audience, is it just made me think of kind of the annual public radio
it's very much in that
drives vein. And even independent podcasts like Radio Lab and This American Life. Like, I don't listen to those as much anymore, but like they do this type of thing kind of regularly, at least once a year, if not more than once a year. So if this is the first time you're doing it in 3.5 years, I mean, I think there's nothing to be worried about there.
Yeah, and I'm not worried about it, actually. Once I finished kind of outlining the whole thing, I'm going to record it today after we get off.
Nice.
And I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
Like I'm excited to kind of do this thing. And I also know that if it doesn't happen, it's okay. It's not like, I don't have this stress like, oh, everything's going to fall apart. The 10-year-old isn't running the show, and it's okay, but it still is not like, it doesn't feel comfortable or like, oh yeah, I know exactly what to do. And here's market research shows that this, and this will double your podcast in this amount of days. And, there's a part of me that feels like, oh, I kind of should be doing that kind of a thing. Cause like I have a business and that's how businesses run. But then I realized, no, that's not me. That's not how my business runs.
Yeah. No. And then like, it's not, you're hitting on like that identity and authenticity that you just mentioned, which is like a core part of how you want to run your business. And there's nothing make or break about this, what you're doing here and what you're putting out. Which it sounds like that's where you got to, is like feeling good about it and knowing that it's going to work out no matter what the response is.
True. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I really am looking forward to growing the podcast, because now, now I'm thinking I'm going to move it to a different host, which is going to give me more opportunities to advertise. I'd love, if I had a bigger podcast, I could attract advertisers that I would really be excited to have on board. I mean, I've been lucky to have some already. I've never had to have an advertiser that I didn't like, or that I felt bad about.
What's your current host and where are you moving to? If you're
I'm at Anchor. Yeah. I'm at Anchor, and that's been great for getting the podcast to where it is. And I still think Anchor is the best place to start a podcast.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've kind of outgrown it. And so I'm looking at either moving to Megaphone, which is another Spotify company. Anchor's a Spotify company. Megaphone.
They're just buying them all up, aren't they?
they are. Art 19, which is an Amazon company. Omni Studio, which is a Triton digital company. I have no idea who they are. I'm still waiting on a call from them. Or Acast, which is a Swedish company that's not Spotify. They all have advantages and disadvantages, and Megaphone's probably going to be the most expensive. Like it's going to incur a bigger monthly expense because they bill by how many downloads you have. But they could also, it seems like there's the highest potential for revenue there. Unfortunately, what I would have to do to access that would be to add what they call programmatic ads, which means ads that are not me talking.
And that they're inserted like...
they're all, kind of like be at the beginning.
Yeah. Is it kind of like how YouTube does it though, where like...
Yeah.
It's not everyone's going to hear the same ad, and the ad that gets played will change over time. So it's kind of like the benefit is that it's outside of your control, or that you don't have to do anything about it. The downside is that it's outside of your control.
The drawback is, it could be Toyota, and it's just, and it could just be a real, but if I do that, the way I'll do it is to put a thing in the beginning of the podcast saying, like 10 seconds saying, hey, we're going to get to the story right after these messages from our sponsor that allow this podcast to stay free. And if you want to get it without ads, you can sign up for the ad-free version at the link in the show notes. And then there'll be a couple of ads, and then I'll have a mid-roll spot between the intro and the actual story that I can sell myself and do an ad if I want to.
Oh, there you go.
What I'd prefer is to not have any programmatic ads, have any outside stuff, but I just don't have enough. The podcast isn't big enough for me to get the advertisers where I could do host read ads.
Yeah.
So it's just been this so it's, and I am a little afraid that programmatic ads could hurt the podcast. People be like, "Oh, is this even the same podcast?" Because for years now, the only ad I've had has been the anchor ad at the beginning of the show, and they've paid me a little bit of money every month for that, and that's kind of been a part of what's made it work out financially. So when I move, I'm going to lose that. Anyway, it's a little complicated and a little scary.
Yeah.
But I think I could make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too. I didn't mean to sidetrack you.
No.
I was just kind of curious about.
I wanted to actually mention that. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, because it's, it's the kind of stuff you run into as a podcaster. Like the more successful you get, the more things there are to juggle. And the more it kind of matters, because it really all comes down to listeners, no listeners, no success. And listeners is giving people, what they came for. And I think that I can keep doing that, and it's no problem to skip the ads at the beginning of a podcast if you want to, I think most people probably do that.
And it wouldn't surprise me if initially, maybe in the podcast world, some people might have a little bit of a negative reaction to programmatic ads. But I've got to think that before long, it's going to be like YouTube, where people don't even associate, I don't think at least, the programmatic ads with the content, with the video they're about to watch. They just know it's something that they're going to find on YouTube. They're going to have to watch a little bit of an ad before they watch the video. So they they don't connect it to the creator.
And lots of other podcasts do the same.
Yeah.
So, I just don't know what percentage of my listeners listen to other podcasts.
Right.
Do they listen to podcasts that do that? And they're like, oh, yeah, no problem. I could ask them, too. I probably should in my next newsletter. That's not a bad idea. I'm going to be writing that next week. I got to write that down. ask about hats.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of where that's at.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about what we were gonna about season one and what we'd kind of talked about at the beginning of the?
Yeah, but maybe let's like, where do you want to, how do you want to wrap up yours? Because you mentioned, okay, you're getting ready for this first vacation in 4 years. Is there anything that you'd like to
Mm-hmm.
say about like what that vacation is, if you're willing to
Um,
share, or you don't have to,
no,
of course.
it's just I just need some time to. I need a couple of weeks with away from the routine of
Gotcha.
this. You
Oh,
know, really.
absolutely.
That's it's literally been 3.5 years of at least one episode every week and 2 years of 3 episodes every week.
Wow.
So I just
It's good.
I need a couple of weeks. I'm going to spend some time with one of my best friends. It's going to be great. I'm
And
really looking forward to it.
it's about 2 weeks long.
Yeah, it's going to be about 2 weeks. It's going to be
Nice.
2 weeks away from creating new episodes. Yeah, so
Gotcha. Well,
which I'm excited
and you
about.
alluded to this, but for so people know too, that means that like you still have to do the work associated with those 2 weeks. It's just that you're doing them now. It's like you have to push yourself
Right.
in order to be able to take a vacation, which is a
Yes.
kind of recurring dynamic for a solopreneur creator.
Well, and to be fair, I mean, I could have just done reruns.
You could have, yeah. Some
That's
people
what a
do
lot of
that.
podcasts do. And last week, the 10-year-old in me was like, reruns. We're doing reruns.
Uh-huh.
And Joe, my fiance, was like, no, babe, don't do that. You'll regret that.
Yeah.
Just buckle down and work a little extra hard now, and you'll be glad you did. And
Yeah.
he was right. And I'm a third of the way through creating all the extra content now. And
Nice.
as I've been uploading it and getting it in there, I've been like, oh, this is great. Now I'm starting to imagine what a month off would look like.
Ooh, yeah.
I could do that with enough preparation.
Yeah.
I could do that and I could go, and take a longer vacation next year. So
I
we'll
think
see.
that's a good like long-term goal for the both of us, maybe, because I've had that in mind for yeah, early on too, like building in systems where there can be a seasonality to your work, where you
Mm-hmm.
have um at different time scales too. This is kind of venturing into a whole nother potential topic, but like setting up your schedule so that, okay, maybe you have every Friday, half of the day you take it off, or you take every Friday off,
Mm-hmm.
and then once a month you take 2 days off, and then like once a year you take a week off or a month off or whatever it is. Like
Yep.
building in those seasonal breaks and
Yeah.
creating like the business structure, whether it's preparing in advance or having other sort of like planned ways to handle those breaks, building
Mm-hmm.
them in, I think is what can make this career for us sustainable, and also maybe lead to better work because of what those two
Totally.
weeks off, what that month off, what that every Friday off, what that the way in which that re-energizes you and you come back with new ideas or at least new energy, and that feeds into the work too. Um,
Yeah.
so that's a good goal, I feel
Yeah.
like. And it sounds like though you've got as far as the you had mentioned before we hopped on the call, like a pitch, that being the pitch to your listeners. It sounds like you've got that pretty well figured out.
Yeah, well, that was kind of what I wanted to run it by you and see what you thought of that. And I'm glad
Yeah,
you were like, yeah, totally, go with that.
yeah,
Because that's kind of how I was feeling. But it's it's always good to just ask someone else.
yeah,
Makes the 10-year-old feel better.
yeah. Well, and I think the combination of things, just to kind of reiterate what I think is valuable about that, like the combination of your honest authenticity around where you want to go and like your ambition for the show, because that's an indicator telling them like where it is now, top 1%, but that your goal is still to like double listeners, and that you're going to continue like making the show better.
Mm-hmm.
That shows your like commitment to the show and to make it good. And then the asks of sharing it with a couple of friends, which will bring value to those friends, so listeners can kind of help each other and kind of help their community by sharing what you're up to. But then there's also the kind of perk revamp that speaks to the listener's own benefit. So I feel like you've hit on the people that want to support you and have you benefit from their actions, have that, the people that want to benefit their friends, and the people that want to benefit themselves through the perks. Like, you're allowing people to tap into like any one of those like desires to help themselves or others. So I think that's what's kind of cool about the pitch you described.
Yeah. I do feel like it's all, it's just above board. It's like, hey, look, here's, I'm not trying to get rich here. I just really want to I kind of need to take this business up a notch, and you can help. So yeah, we'll see.
Love it. Well, that's great. Maybe there we can transition into a final segment for this week. Special segment. I think we maybe only have done like a third segment once before from a question that came in.
That's right.
But over the past, handful of weeks, Erik and I have been talking about the holidays coming up, a 2-week vacation coming up for Erik. And then just this transition to the new year, and this being episode 10, considering it kind of a good time maybe to wrap up what we will call season 1 of the show, and then take a break for a while and come back sometime in 2023 with a season 2. Give ourselves some time to rest, to also maybe dig a little bit deeper on other projects. Like, I think this will create a little bit of space in my weekly schedule to get kind of my Substack publication off the ground. And I'm sure, you have many projects that you're working on, Erik, that would benefit from some time. And from my perspective, and then I'll throw it to Erik to hear if Erik has reflections on these previous 10 episodes and what might come next. Like, I feel like over these 10 weeks that we've been chatting, we've each kind of had a couple or a handful of things that we've worked on and like kept referencing, and our conversations have helped us to kind of figure out some of the details or get confident in our decisions in those realms, to the point where I'm feeling pretty good about like my plan moving forward. So I'm kind of excited to jump into execution mode. But I have no doubt that in the coming months, like, questions are going to crop up, like uncertainties will arise where I'm sure I'll have like a note card or a spot on my phone or someplace to list like questions that I want to bring up with Erik next time we start chatting again, right? So that's kind of how I'm envisioning a season 2 in 2023, once we both have like, done the work for a while, and then we identify some things that we maybe want to explore. That could be what season 2 brings.
Sure.
How about you, Erik? How are you thinking about past 10 episodes and
well, I do think I agree with everything you said, and that I've had the same sorts of benefits come just idea wise, and sorting out everything around this new venture, and kind of like getting the podcast to a new level of success. That's been really helpful. And I think that as much it's been that not being in this alone thing has been so important to me. And that's more of like a spiritual, emotional aspect to this that you can't put a productivity number on, or it's just that I know we're gonna talk, and that the talk is gonna be good, and it's it's just I'm not in this on my own, so for someone like me, that is a huge benefit. I do love being in charge of my own business, but I don't love being the only one in my business some days.
Yeah.
So it's it's just, that's been the biggest benefit for me, and I'm looking forward to more of that, and to continuing our collaboration on our individual things and this one thing that we do together.
Yeah.
It might also be really fun to kind of take some time before we come back for season 2 and see what we could do to make this more successful.
It's true.
You know? Because it's very niche.
It is very niche. And it's not like this is, as far as like viewership as a show, this hasn't really grown that much since we started.
No, it hasn't.
Which was like a secondary goal. I mean, it was a little bit of a goal. You know, we wanted it to be useful and interesting for other people, and I think it is to at least a few people. But yeah,
well, and it's not like it's, you know, time sensitive information. A lot of this stuff is good no matter when you stumble across it.
It's true,
and that's what's nice about having it on YouTube. But it would be interesting before we come back for season 2 to go, you know, to kind of like do a Doug and Erik's market analysis TM, and kind of go, well, what would, you know, like if we were going to tweak it, what would those tweaks look like? Because now we've got a thing, you know, how do we make that thing better? I've tweaked my podcast so much over the years, and the tweaking is kind of fun.
Oh yeah, so it brings.
I look forward
fresh energy
to doing that.
We've talked about that. I have an idea too for one of those tweaks.
You want to share it?
Yeah, I think I do.
Good.
I think this has come up whether on the show or in our private conversations of like, you know, the structure this season, these first 10 episodes has been pretty consistent. One person shares a short update, the other person does a deep dive on what they're thinking about. And throughout that, we've touched on like a lot of the components of each of our businesses, but we've never really done it like systematically. So a potential new format for season 2 is maybe we lay out like 10 key topics that any solopreneur has to address, or questions they have to answer, or things that they have to figure out about their business, like, you know, I don't know, audience, product, marketing, content, like we could define like what those are. And then in each of the episodes, we each describe, here's how I approach marketing in my business. Here are the products that I create for my business. Like, and here's like how they're monetized. Like even today, like I'd been wanting for a while to hear a little bit about the kind of monetization of your podcast, because we've never done a deep dive into that. So that could be a potential structure for that season. And then there could also be a component of weekly updates to it. Like we could each bring maybe like a quick question that we have about our business, either before or after that kind of topical deep dive.
I like that idea a lot.
Cool.
Yeah. Yay.
Sweet. Well, we'll think
Look
about
at that little preview of season 2.
Yeah. Hey, there we go. So if you found us on YouTube and we haven't uploaded in a while, now you know why, and now you know what you might get to see. Who knows? We could come up with a better idea.
Who knows?
Season 2 in 2023.
Awesome. Well, Doug, thank you so much for doing this with me for these last 10 weeks. It's really been awesome, and I am going to look forward to seeing you again in the new year for sure.
Yeah, me too. I have appreciated these calls immensely and benefited from and just enjoyed this time spent together, as you mentioned. And I hope we have a great break, that the lead up to your vacation isn't too packed or too stressful, and that you just really enjoy that couple of weeks.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
And then we can connect again next year.
All right. Well, take care, everybody. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. And we'll see you in 2023.
Yeah, see you then.